Many people in the room already. From experience, we will have a couple of people joining us in a few moments. But in the meantime, welcome to all of you who are here. Just a reminder that the G-Echo or Gastro-Echo meetings are hosted by the Gastro Foundation in association with Project Echo, University of New Mexico, typically held every Wednesday on a weekly basis. But the patient blood management sessions we only have every 6 to 8 weeks. The chat will be open for questions, so please make use of that. Really like to, and I'm sure today's topic you'll see, we will have many questions and areas of interest. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Marius Coetzee, who's Emeritus Professor and previous Head of Hematology at the University of the Free State. We worked closely together for many years when I was there. And Marius has shared with me a deep interest in all things iron, and in particular patient blood management and iron diagnostics. And he's agreed to tackle this very difficult topic of ferritin interpretation and all the questions surrounding it. Just in the week, I was emailing with a person in the Netherlands that works on this, and she actually said we will be busy writing a paper together. She said people do not realize how much complexity there is beneath the surface in terms of standardization and interpretation and so on with regards to ferritin. And Marius, we look forward to hearing how this process can be revealed to us a little bit more and opened up. And both of us expect quite a lot of discussion, and we look forward to it. And welcome, Marius. I'm going to hand over to you. Feel free to share your screen.
Thank you.
And again, everybody that may have come in the meantime, please feel free to put any questions in the chat for Prof Coetzee. Over to you, Marius.
Thank you. Thank you, Vernon. This is quite, as he said, a complex topic. I think we have Jody in the audience. He's a chemical pathologist and will be able to actually give us insights where my limits have been reached. So there was a Canadian publication from Toronto about raising the ferritin bar, and it was a project which they've been busy with for at least 5 years. And I thought, let's just examine it and a bit of the background and see what we can learn from it. Okay, so I'm just going to talk briefly about ferritin assays, then about reference ranges and clinical decision limits, a bit of background, the Canadian story, and then about change management and perhaps what we can do in our country. So even though I'm a pathologist, the important thing is that everything starts with clinical history and examination before you then suspect a probable underlying iron deficiency. And today, we are only going to look at the routine tests. The ferritin, which is decreased in iron deficiency, except say with the caveat of inflammation, and then the decreased transferrin saturation. So the transferrin, the iron result we get routinely in labs is actually the iron that's bound to transferrin. And so if you actually assay that and then the amount of transferrin, you can at least mathematically work out how many of these sites of ferritin um, are occupied by iron. Well, for now we're just looking at the assays briefly. The thing is that ferritin consists of 24 subunits. There are isoforms, etc. And it's a large molecule, almost 500 kilodaltons, about 10 nanometers in diameter. And there are various assays. So I'm not going to actually spend a lot of time on this, but these are at least the commercially active ones. They all rely on antibodies that identify ferritin. There's a process of chemiluminescence where the antibodies have got luminescent properties. The more they are, the more luminescence. There's magnetism used here too, an electrochemiluminescence, and there's a two-sandwich chemiluminescence. All I'll just refer to this paper by Braga et al. So, and the thing is, when you start to assay something in the lab, everybody has to talk the same language. So and usually there's a WHO standard. So the first standard, 80/602 in 1985, was made from liver ferritin taken from a cadaver, but it was exhausted after a while. Then a code 80/578 in 1994, it was made from human spleen ferritin from somebody with iron overload, and the stores actually at the WHO have also been depleted. To solve this depletion problem, I think, in 1997, there was a recombinant preparation, but it differed from both of the previous ones because it's recombinant. And later on, in 2022, a fourth standard was made, which was related to the third. So the thing is, there are at least 4 big manufacturers of ferritin assays, and actually they tend to use different different standards. So it's actually extremely difficult to compare one result with the other unless they've been done with an assay that works on the same standard. Okay. Now the next thing is skills. So this comes from American Society of Clinical Lab Sciences definition. It's a statistical range of expected values set by the testing laboratory, which identifies upper and lower limits of a population for a specific test. And usually it's an apparently healthy population. And then you can also, of course, make subgroups according to age, sex, reproductive status, and so on. And the thing is that reference intervals, we used to call them normal ranges or normal values, they are meant to assist in the clinical interpretation of a test. But mostly they are actually mathematical interpretations of the range of the results. So they do not always have absolute clinical relevance. The other concept is decision limits. So these are values which warrant action. So for instance, whenever you do have a cholesterol done, it says your total cholesterol should be less than 5. And similarly with HbA1c. So on lab reports nowadays, they don't worry so much about the actual mathematical range, but in these cases, they refer to a decision limit. Okay, and there's just something so that we're on the same page. The Clinical Laboratory Standards Institute is an American, but actually international organization that really lays down guidelines for labs. And they have this a C28, the third edition, that actually describes how one should determine reference intervals. So for start, here's something that's normally distributed. For instance, something like serum, sodium or hemoglobin. And you can see there's the mean in the middle, and then you have one standard deviation on either side, and then two SDs here. So in this case, the reference intervals are defined as the two extremes of the two standard deviations. But naturally speaking, there are then 2.5% of people that are extremely healthy, but have values above that, and also on the other side. But there are many chemical tests where the results are not normally distributed. And this is, for instance, one is a triglyceride. So the thing is that most people have low triglycerides. So you can't use standard deviations here. You use confidence intervals or quartiles, which makes it more physiological. And then, of course, the important thing when you are selecting people to determine a reference interval is, for instance, for iron, you should try your best to make certain that these people are not iron deficient. So, for instance, you have to kind of decide whether you're going to do it on children, females, males, and so forth. And then you have to ask about symptoms of iron deficiency and so forth, inflammation, etc. And you have to then select as many virtually normal people or healthy people as you can. And of course, that's quite a difficult task. Okay, so this is from a Dutch group, Kirstens, that looked at reference intervals from external quality assurance results. And these were from 52 ISO accredited labs. And they looked at almost 400,000 results. These are at the bottom is the age, and then here is the median plasma ferritin concentration. So in men, you can see that also young kids have got are using up all their ferritin, the iron, and then with age, you get a rise. And these different lines are actually the results determined on the same plasma sample. So you can see there's quite a range. And for women, you can see that it also starts slow, and then after the end of the reproductive period, the iron, the ferritin levels tend to rise. All right. So this is from that same paper, and here they looked at the 52 labs, and they grouped them according to the instrument they were using. So, for instance, there were two labs using Beckman. That's the dark one is the Beckman insert reference range, and you can see that lab 1 uses exactly the same, but lab 2 uses a wider reference range up to about 20. The Abbott insert's there, but everybody's using higher than that. The Siemens insert is there. Some people use much lower, others exactly the same, and others higher. And the same for the Roche instrument. So, and some of the private labs actually mention which method they are using. So for a start, if you send the same specimen to 4 different labs, you can get 4 different ferritin results. And this is another Dutch publication von Scholgenstein, Landman et al. Here they also looked at iron reference intervals, and here were the various reference intervals of different laboratories. So one can see there is a significant range. All right. So then let's just look at the situation more practically. The gastro paper about iron deficiency, Simmons et al. Of last year, state that iron deficiencies are considered likely if the serum ferritin level is below 30 nanograms per milliliter. If there's inflammation, one can perhaps use up a lower limit of 100 nanograms, and then if there's a lot of inflammation, even up to about 400 nanograms per milliliter, but the saturation, the transferrin saturation is low, you can still suspect iron deficiency. This is a study from a blood banking. You can see that there were four blood bank organizations involved from Sweden, US, Holland, and us. And what they did was to determine the hemoglobin and the ferritin at subsequent donations. And they tried to see at what point the ferritin concentration would then translate into an increased hemoglobin. So that they found in each of these populations that as they received ferritin, iron supplements and so on, and recovered, there was a slope and then a change point at which the hemoglobin suddenly started rising. But the point is that each of these different organizations used the different ferritin assays, and they actually had 4 different graphs for each of the populations. They weren't quite certain if it was just the assay or if there were biological differences. And then perhaps something that brings us closer to physiology was the group from um, Zurich, from the ETH, that did ferritin and hepcidin concentrations after giving test meals, providing a kind of physiological amount of iron, but these were radioactively labeled. And they looked at retrospectively at 1,000 health um, uh, um, yeah, the function, the amount of iron, the ferritin, the hepcidin drops, and there's an increased amount of absorption. So they thought of the perhaps a ferritin of 50 micrograms per liter is a good thing. They used a Roche instrument. All right. I wonder, are there any questions at this stage? Because perhaps it's a good idea that we're just on the same page about the ferritin assays and lower limits of normal, etc.
I don't see any questions in the chat
Okay, all
yet,
right,
Marius.
all right. So then we move to Canada, and this is Ontario. You can see it's just on the other side of the Great Lakes from the USA, and around about there, at the point of the arrow, is Toronto. So that about 16 million people in this province of Canada. And then we're just going to look at this the unit there. So there is a Unity Health organization. It's a Catholic healthcare network that has a number of hospitals, of which St. Michael's Hospital is the one. And there's a hematology immunology translational research theme in the La Ka-Shing Knowledge Institute. So La Ka-Shing was a Chinese philanthropist that had also had Canadian businesses sold these and then gave them for research. And Michelle Schultzberg is the director. And then we're just going to, they have a website called Heme Equity, because they think their aim was to look at equity in hematological conditions. So this test tube gives the timeline of their Raise the Bar program, and they published the final paper a short while ago as a letter in the British Journal of Hematology. And you can see there in 2020, they started the task force, and they published something soon after that, and see and the kinetic